The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. 7 great species worked together to keep peace across 1,000,000 worlds. They had powerful fleets, ancient wisdom, and technology that could reshape planets. They believed they knew everything worth knowing about the universe. They were wrong. Deep in the oldest archives of the Assembly, buried under countless files marked as unimportant, there existed a single entry about a species called humans. The file was short. It described them as primitive creatures from a small blue planet in a dangerous sector of space. Scientists had predicted their sun would become unstable. No rescue mission was ever sent. The file was marked extinct and forgotten. No one had thought about humans for 10,000 years. Commander Yuna of the Valori species stood on the bridge of her reconnaissance ship, staring at her navigation screens with confusion. She was a tall woman with silver skin and eyes that glowed soft blue. She had served in the Valori fleet for 30 years and had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. "Run the scan again," she ordered her crew. "Commander, we have run it 7 times," replied her sensor officer. "The results are the same. The dead sector." That was what everyone called this region of space. For thousands of years, no ship had entered it. Old records said it was full of unstable stars and deadly radiation. There was nothing there worth finding. At least, that was what everyone believed. But 3 days ago, the Assembly had detected energy signatures coming from the dead sector. Massive energy signatures. The kind that only came from advanced civilizations. Yuna had been sent to investigate. What she found made no sense. Her screens showed 12 planets full of life. Enormous space stations floated in orbit around each world. Ships moved between them in organized patterns. Cities glowed on the dark sides of planets. Billions of life signs registered on her sensors. "This is impossible," whispered Yuna. "There should be nothing here. The records say this sector was dead." "Commander," said her communications officer, a young Valori named Hanul, "we are being scanned. Whoever they are, they know we are here." Yuna felt fear crawl up her spine. Her ship was small, meant only for observation. If whoever lived here was hostile, she had no way to defend herself. "Can you identify the scanning technology?" she asked. Hanul shook his head. "No, Commander. It does not match anything in our database. I do not understand how it works." That frightened Yuna more than anything. The Valori database contained information about every known species and technology in the galaxy. For something to not match meant it was completely unknown, completely alien. "Set course to retreat," Yuna ordered. "We need to report this to the Assembly." Before her pilot could respond, a message appeared on every screen on her ship. It was written in perfect galactic standard, the common language used by all Assembly species. The message was simple. "You are welcome here, but know that we remember being forgotten." Yuna read the message 3 times. Her hearts beat fast in her chest. "Hanul, where did this message come from?" "Everywhere, Commander. It was sent from every station, every planet, every ship in this system, all at the same time." A new message appeared. "We are the humans. We did not die. We survived. We grew. We watched. And we have been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Yuna felt the weight of those words press down on her. Humans, the extinct species, the forgotten ones. They were not only alive, but had built an empire that seemed more advanced than anything she had ever seen. "Open a communication channel," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I wish to speak with whoever is in charge." There was a pause. Then a face appeared on her main screen. It was a human. Yuna had seen old images in the archives, but this was different. The human was a woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations. Behind her, Yuna could see a command center filled with advanced technology and busy officers. "I am Minister Yunji," the human said. "I speak for the Human Council. You are the first visitor we have had in 10,000 years. We have many questions for you." Yuna found her voice. "I am Commander Yuna of the Valori Reconnaissance Division. I represent the Galactic Assembly. We detected your energy signatures and came to investigate. We did not know anyone lived here." "No," said Yunji. Her voice was calm, but there was something hard underneath it. "You did not know, because no one ever came to check. When our world was dying, we sent thousands of messages asking for help. No one answered. When plagues killed millions of our people, we begged for medicine. No one came. When asteroids threatened our colonies, we screamed into the void for rescue. Only silence answered." Yuna felt shame burn in her chest. "Minister, I did not know." "Of course you did not. Why would you? We were just primitives. Unimportant. Not worth saving." Yunji leaned forward slightly. "But we did not die, Commander. We survived. Every disaster that should have destroyed us only made us stronger. Every challenge we faced alone taught us to be better. We built all of this with no help from anyone." Yuna looked again at the screens showing the human civilization. 12 worlds, massive stations, technology beyond anything she recognized, all built by a species the galaxy had written off as extinct. "What do you want?" Yuna asked. It was the only question that mattered. Yunji was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but no less serious. "We want answers, Commander. We want to know why no one came. We want to know why we were left to die. And we want to know what kind of galaxy we have been hiding from all these years." She paused, and something like sadness crossed her face. "We also want to know if things have changed. If the galaxy that abandoned us has become something better. Or if it is still the same cold, uncaring place that let a young species scream for help until its voice went silent." Yuna did not have answers. She only had shame and confusion, and a growing fear that the galaxy was about to change in ways no one was ready for. "I will take your questions to the Assembly," she said. "I cannot promise they will listen, but I will make sure they hear." Yunji nodded slowly. "That is all we ask for now, Commander. But know this. We have been patient for 10,000 years. We will not be patient forever. The humans are no longer a rumor. We are here, and the galaxy will have to decide what to do about that." The screen went dark. Yuna stood alone on her bridge, surrounded by her frightened crew, staring at the impossible civilization that had risen from the ashes of abandonment. The forgotten species had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The news of humanity's existence spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species in the assembly demanded answers. How had a civilization this advanced remained hidden for so long? Why had no one ever checked on them? Old records were pulled from archives. Scientists argued. Politicians blamed each other. Fear and curiosity mixed together in equal parts. But before anyone could decide what to do about the humans, something far worse happened. The Keth came. They came from the outer edges of the galaxy, from regions so distant that no assembly ship had ever traveled there. They came in massive black ships that blocked out the stars. They came with weapons that the assembly had never seen before. And they came to conquer everything. The first attack hit the Valori homeworld. Commander Yuna was there when it happened. She watched from her ship as Keth vessels filled the sky. She watched as strange beams of green light swept across the surface of her planet. She watched as her people began to change. The Keth did not simply kill their enemies, they converted them. Their weapons rewrote the bodies and minds of their victims, turning them into Keth soldiers. Families watched as their loved ones became monsters. Children saw their parents transform into enemies. It was not just war, it was horror beyond imagination. Within 3 weeks, The collective fleet of the Galactic Assembly was destroyed. 5 of the 7 member species had lost their homeworlds. Billions were dead. Billions more had been converted into Keth soldiers. The galaxy was falling. Far away, in the human systems, Admiral Dohun watched the reports come in. He was an old man with gray hair and a face marked by decades of service. He sat in his command center, surrounded by screens showing the destruction of civilization after civilization. "They are being slaughtered," said his aide, a young officer named Junho. "The Keth are moving faster than anyone expected. At this rate, the entire assembly will fall within 2 months." Dohun said nothing. He simply watched. The humans had spent 10,000 years building their strength in secret. They had the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. They had weapons that could turn the tide of any battle. They had the power to save everyone. But why should they? The galaxy had abandoned humanity. When humans had faced extinction, no one had lifted a finger to help. When human children had died of plagues that other species could have cured, the assembly had not even noticed. The humans owed the galaxy nothing. Many argued they should seal their borders and let the assembly burn. Dohun understood this argument. Part of him even agreed with it. Then his daughter arrived. Sora was a lieutenant in the humanitarian division. She commanded a medical ship that had been intercepting refugees fleeing from Keth space. She walked into her father's command center with a data chip in her hand and exhaustion in her eyes. "You need to see this," she said. She played the recordings, video after video of destruction. A Valori mother holding her children as Keth beams swept toward them. An entire species called the Morani, their last survivors, crowded onto 3 damaged ships, begging anyone who could hear for help. A young boy from a species Dohun did not recognize, standing alone in the ruins of his city, crying for parents who would never answer. "There are billions of them, Father," Sora said. Her voice was shaking. "Billions of innocent people who are going to die, children who have done nothing wrong, families who just want to survive. They have no one else. We are their only hope." Dohun looked at his daughter. "They never helped us. When we were dying, they did nothing." "I know," said Sora. "But does that mean we should become like them? Does that mean we should watch children die and do nothing, just because someone did that to us once?" She stepped closer to her father. "We spent 10,000 years becoming strong. What is the point of all that strength if we only use it to protect ourselves? What kind of people does that make us?" Dohun did not answer, but he took the data chip and called an emergency meeting of the Human Council. The debate lasted for 3 days. Voices rose in anger. Old wounds were opened. Many council members argued that humanity should stay hidden and let the galaxy destroy itself. "They forgot us," shouted Councilman Ki-hyun. "They left us to die. Why should we spend human lives to save people who would have let us go extinct?" Others disagreed. "We are not doing this for them," argued Councilwoman Bora. "We are doing this for us, for who we want to be. If we let billions die when we could have saved them, we become exactly the kind of people we have always hated." The arguments went back and forth. Neither side could convince the other. It seemed like the vote would fail. Then Misun stood up. She was the oldest member of the council, a woman of 90 years with white hair and a soft voice. She had lived through the worst of the Crucible years, the time when humanity had faced extinction alone. She had lost her parents, her siblings, and her first husband to disasters that no one had helped them survive. If anyone had a right to hate the galaxy, it was her. She spoke slowly, her words filling the silent chamber. "I remember the silence," she said. "I remember screaming for help and hearing nothing. I remember watching people I loved die because no one cared enough to save them. That silence shaped me. It shaped all of us. It made us strong because we had no other choice." She paused and looked around the room. "But strength without compassion is just cruelty with better weapons. If we let the galaxy burn, we do not prove that we are better than them. We prove that we are the same. We prove that the silence was right, that no one in this universe cares about anyone else." Her voice grew stronger. "I do not want to live in that universe. I want to live in a universe where someone answers when children cry for help. I want to prove that the silence was wrong, that even after everything we suffered, we chose to be something better." She sat down. The chamber was quiet. The vote was held. It passed by a single margin. Humanity would go to war. Admiral Dohun received the order that night. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of people were dying. People who had never helped humanity. People whose ancestors had written off humans as unimportant. But also children who had done nothing wrong, families who just wanted to live, innocent people facing a horror they could not fight alone. Dohun thought of his daughter. He thought of Meeson's words. He thought of the screaming silence that had shaped his people for 10,000 years. "Send the order to all fleet commanders," he said finally. "We move at dawn. The humans are going to war." The galaxy that had forgotten humanity was about to learn what humanity had become, and nothing would ever be the same. The Battle of Veros Prime would be remembered for 1,000 years. It was the place where the galaxy first understood what humanity had become. Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of her damaged flagship, watching her fleet die. The Valori had gathered every ship they had left for a final stand at Veros Prime. It was their last colony world. If it fell, the Valori species would be extinct. But the Keth had come with 500 warships. The Valori had only 80. "Commander, we have lost another 12 ships," reported Hanul. His voice was flat with exhaustion and despair. "The conversion beams are spreading faster than we can retreat." Yuna watched the battle on her screens. Green beams swept across space, touching Valori ships and transforming their crews into Keth soldiers. Former friends became enemies. Brothers fired on brothers. The horror of Keth warfare was not just death. It was watching everyone you loved become a monster. "How many ships do we have left?" Yuna asked. 23, Commander, and 6 of those are badly damaged." 23 ships against 500. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Yuna looked at the planet below her. Veros Prime held 2 billion Valori civilians, children, families, the last survivors of her species. If she retreated, the Keth would convert them all. If she stayed, her fleet would be destroyed anyway. There was no good choice. There was only one final act of defiance. "All ships," Yuna said into her communicator. "This is Commander Yuna. Set collision courses for the Keth command vessels. We cannot win this battle, but we can hurt them. We can make them pay for every life they take. Today we show them that the Valori do not surrender. Today we—" "Commander!" Hanul shouted suddenly. "Something is happening. Our sensors are detecting— I do not understand what our sensors are detecting." Space itself seemed to tear open. Behind the Keth fleet, points of light appeared. Not the normal flash of ships exiting hyperspace. These were different. Reality folded and twisted, creating doorways that led to somewhere Yuna's computers could not identify. Ships came through, hundreds of them. They were unlike anything Yuna had ever seen. Dark hulls covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move, angular shapes that looked more like weapons than vessels. They moved in perfect formation, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. "What are they?" Yuna whispered. The answer came over every communication channel in the battle. A human voice, calm and clear. "Keth forces, this is Captain Taewoo of the Human Naval Force. You are engaged in unlawful aggression against a civilian population. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system. This is your only warning." The Keth did not respond. They never negotiated. They never retreated. They simply turned their ships toward the new threat and attacked. That was their mistake. What happened next, took exactly 30 seconds. Yuna watched it with her mouth open, unable to believe what her eyes were seeing. Human weapons did not work like anything she knew. Beams of white light cut through Keth's shields as if they did not exist. Missiles appeared inside Keth's ships without ever crossing the space between them. Keth vessels suddenly turned and fired on each other, their control systems completely taken over by human electronic warfare. The Keth conversion beams, the weapons that had terrorized the galaxy, reached toward the human ships and did nothing. They simply stopped, as if hitting an invisible wall, and faded away. In 30 seconds, the first 100 Keth ships were destroyed. In 60 seconds, 200 more followed. In 5 minutes, the entire Keth fleet of 500 warships was gone, not retreated, not damaged, gone. As if they had never existed, the human fleet had not lost a single ship. Yuna stood in silence. Her bridge crew stood in silence. Across what remained of the Valori fleet, every officer and soldier stood in silence, staring at the impossible thing they had just witnessed. Captain Taewoo's face appeared on her screen. He was a young man with short black hair and tired eyes. He looked like he had not slept in days. "Commander Yuna," he said, "the Keth fleet has been eliminated. Your planet is secure. Medical ships are on their way to assist with wounded and refugees." Yuna found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "How? How did you do that?" Taewoo's expression did not change. "We have had 10,000 years to prepare, Commander. 10,000 years alone in the dark, with no one to help us and no one to save us. We learned to save ourselves, and now we have come to help you do the same." Behind him, Yuna could see human officers working at their stations. They moved with calm efficiency, as if destroying 500 enemy ships was just another routine operation. "Why?" Yuna asked. It was the only question that mattered. "Why help us? We abandoned you. We left you to die. You owe us nothing." Taewoo was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "A long time ago, we asked that same question. Why did no one help us? Why did no one care? We never got an answer. We probably never will." He looked directly at her through the screen. "But we decided that we did not want to be the kind of people who let others suffer alone. We decided that even though no one answered when we called for help, we would answer when others called. Not because we owe you anything, but because it is the right thing to do. Because we refuse to become what the silence tried to make us." Yuna felt tears running down her silver cheeks. Around her, she could hear her crew members weeping as well. Tears of relief, tears of shame, tears of something that felt almost like hope. "Thank you," she said. The words felt too small for what she felt. Taewoo nodded. "Do not thank us yet, Commander. The Keth are still out there. This battle is won, but the war has just begun. We are going to need your help, and the help of every species in the galaxy, if we are going to end this." He paused. "The humans cannot save everyone alone, but we can give you a chance to fight back, a chance to survive. What you do with that chance is up to you." The screen went dark. Yuna stood on her bridge, surrounded by her surviving crew, watching human medical ships descend toward her wounded planet. The forgotten species had returned. They had come not with anger, not with revenge, but with help. They had answered the call that no one had answered for them. Across the galaxy, news of the Battle of Veros Prime spread. Species that had given up hope began to believe again. The Keth were not invincible. They could be beaten, and the humans, the ancient rumors, the forgotten primitives, were leading the way. The ghosts from the void had arrived, and they had brought salvation with them. 3 months after the Battle of Veros Prime, Commander Yuna received an invitation that no outsider had ever received before. She was asked to visit Earth, the human homeworld. She traveled alone, as requested. Her small ship was escorted by human vessels through regions of space she had never seen on any map. Star systems full of life. Worlds covered in cities that reached into the clouds. Space stations larger than moons. The scale of human civilization was beyond anything she had imagined, but nothing prepared her for Earth itself. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds drifting across a gentle sky. It looked peaceful, almost innocent. But Yuna knew that this small world had given birth to something extraordinary. A shuttle brought her down to a city called Seoul. The buildings were tall and elegant, mixing ancient styles with advanced technology. Humans walked the streets below, living their normal lives. Children laughed in parks, families shared meals in restaurants. It looked so ordinary, so peaceful. A man was waiting for her at the landing pad. He was middle-aged with kind eyes and gray at his temples. He introduced himself as Professor Jiwoo, a historian. "Welcome to Earth, Commander," he said. "I have been asked to show you our history, to help you understand who we are and how we came to be." Yuna nodded. "That is why I came. I need to understand. My people need to understand." Jiwoo smiled sadly. "Understanding is difficult, but I will try." He took her to a building called the Memorial of Silence. It was a vast structure made of black stone stretching deep underground. Inside, the walls were covered with names, millions of names. "These are the people who died during the silence," Jiwoo explained. "The time when we called for help and no one answered." He led her through chamber after chamber, each one dedicated to a different disaster. A plague that killed 300 million people. A medicine had existed in the wider galaxy that could have saved them. No one sent it. An asteroid impact that destroyed an entire colony. The assembly had technology to deflect such threats. No one offered help. A solar flare that irradiated 2 worlds. Other species could have evacuated the population. No one came. "We sent messages every day for 200 years, Jiwoo said quietly. "Thousands of messages. Please help us. Our people are dying. Is anyone there? We never received a single reply." Yuna felt sick. She had read the old files. She knew her ancestors had received those messages. They had read them, discussed them briefly, and decided that helping a primitive species was not worth the effort. The humans were too far away. Too unimportant. Not worth saving. "I am sorry," she said. The words felt hollow and meaningless. "I know," said Jiwoo. "But sorry does not bring back the dead. Sorry does not undo 200 years of screaming into silence." He led her to another section of the memorial. This one was different. Instead of names of the dead, it showed images of survival. Scientists working through the night to develop cures. Engineers building ships from scraps of metal. Ordinary people sharing their last food with strangers. Communities coming together to face disasters that should have destroyed them. "This is what the silence created," Jiwoo said. "We learned that no one was coming to save us, so we stopped waiting. We saved ourselves." He showed her records of what humans called the Crucible Years. Centuries of hardship that would have broken most species. But humans did not break. Every disaster taught them to be better. Every failure pushed them to try harder. Every death made them more determined to ensure that others would live. They developed genetic engineering that eliminated disease. They created artificial intelligences that worked alongside humans as partners. They built ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They invented weapons that could destroy entire fleets, but it was not just technology, it was philosophy. "We call it spite-born hope," Jiwoo explained. "The universe tried to kill us. No one helped us. By all logic, we should have died. But we refused. We survived specifically because we were told we could not. Every achievement, every advancement, every victory was our way of saying that we would not disappear quietly." He stopped in front of a large window that looked out over the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. But spite can only take you so far, he continued. Eventually, we had to choose what kind of people we wanted to be. We could have become bitter and cruel. We could have built our strength only for revenge. Many wanted exactly that. He turned to look at Yuna. But we chose something different. We chose to become the rescue that never came for us. We chose to ensure that no species would ever feel as alone as we did. Not because we forgave the galaxy for abandoning us, but because we refused to let the silence win. We refused to become cold and uncaring like the universe that ignored our cries. Yuna thought about the Battle of Veros Prime, the human ships arriving at the last moment, the impossible victory, the medical ships descending to help the wounded. She had thought it was simply military strength. Now she understood it was something more. "Do you hate us?" she asked. "For not coming?" Jiwoo was quiet for a long time. "We did," he finally said. "For centuries we hated you. That hatred kept us alive when nothing else could. It gave us the strength to survive when survival seemed impossible." He sighed. "But hatred is exhausting, Commander. It burns you from the inside. Eventually, we had to let it go. Not for your sake, for ours. We could not build the future we wanted if we were always looking backward at our pain." He smiled, though there was sadness in it. "We do not hate you anymore. But we remember. We will always remember. Not to punish you, but to remind ourselves why we fight. Why we answer calls for help that no one answered for us. Why we choose compassion when cruelty would be easier." Yuna felt tears on her face. She had come to Earth expecting to find anger, expecting to find a species waiting for revenge. Instead, she found something far more powerful. She found a people who had transformed their greatest wound into their greatest strength. "What do you want from us now?" she asked. "From the assembly? From the galaxy?" Jiwoo looked back at the sunset. "We want partners," he said. "Not subjects, not servants. Partners who will stand beside us and help us build something better. A galaxy where no child cries alone in the dark. A galaxy where the silence never wins again." He turned to her one last time. "Can you help us build that, Commander? Can your people?" Yuna thought of her species, of the assembly, of all the mistakes they had made, all the calls for help they had ignored, all the suffering they had allowed through their indifference. "I do not know," she said honestly, "but I want to try." Jiwoo nodded. "That is all we ask." The sun disappeared below the horizon and the stars came out. Somewhere among them, war was still raging, the Keth were still killing, the galaxy was still burning. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the humans were not alone. And neither was anyone else. The Keth Dominion was dying, and they knew it. For 6 months, human forces had pushed them back across the galaxy. World after world was liberated. Species that had faced extinction found hope again. The unstoppable Keth war machine had finally met something it could not defeat. But the Keth were not finished. They gathered every ship they had left, every soldier, every weapon, for one final attack. Their target was the assembly capital, a massive space station where representatives of all 7 species lived and worked. If the Keth could destroy it, they would break the will of the entire galaxy. And they had a new weapon. Intelligence reports called it the World Breaker, a device that could send conversion beams across an entire planet at once. One shot, and every living being on a world would become a Keth soldier. They planned to use it on the assembly capital and its population of 50 billion people. Admiral Do-hoon received the reports aboard his flagship. He was tired. 6 months of constant warfare had aged him 10 years, but when he read about the World Breaker, his exhaustion disappeared. "Call every ship we have," he ordered, "human and allied, everything. This is the final battle. The fleet that gathered at the assembly capital was the largest in galactic history. 300 human warships formed the center. Around them flew vessels from all 7 assembly species, Valori cruisers, Marani destroyers, Takeshi carriers, and ships from a dozen other civilizations that had joined the fight. Over 1,000 ships in total. Against them came the Keth, 2,000 vessels carrying the last of their forces. At the center of their formation sat the World Breaker, a massive construct bristling with conversion arrays. Commander Yuna coordinated the Allied forces from her rebuilt flagship. She had learned much from working alongside humans. Her crews had trained with human officers. Her ships had been upgraded with human technology. The Valori were not the same broken species they had been 6 months ago. "All Allied vessels, report status," she called out. One by one, commanders from every species responded. They were ready. They were afraid. But they would not run. "Human fleet, report status," Yuna continued. Admiral Dohun's voice came through, calm as always. "Human forces ready, Commander. It has been an honor serving alongside you." Yuna smiled despite her fear. "The honor is mine, Admiral. Let us end this." The battle began. Space erupted in fire and light. Keth ships charged forward in massive waves. Allied vessels moved to intercept. Human weapons carved paths through enemy formations, while Allied ships protected human flanks. It was not elegant. It was not easy, but they held. Deep in the chaos, a small team moved toward the World Breaker. Lieutenant Sora led them, commanding a stealth ship carrying a team of special forces. Their mission was simple: get inside the World Breaker and destroy it from within. "Approaching target," her pilot reported. "Keth defenses are thick." "Find a way through," Sora said. "We only get one chance at this." They dodged between burning ships and clouds of debris. Twice they nearly died, but they reached the World Breaker and docked at an access port. Inside, the corridors were dark and filled with strange organic growths. The Keth did not build with metal and circuits like other species. Their technology was alive, grown rather than manufactured. It made Sora's skin crawl, but she pushed forward. "Fan out," she ordered her team. "Find the central core." They moved through the nightmare ship, fighting Keith soldiers at every turn. They lost 2 people at the first intersection, 3 more at the second. By the time they reached the core, only Sora and 4 others remained. The core chamber was vast, filled with pulsing light. At its center floated the Keth Overmind, a massive biological entity that controlled the entire Dominion through psychic connection. It was ancient, terrible, and completely aware of their presence. "Small creatures," it spoke directly into their minds. "You cannot stop us. We have consumed 1,000 species. We will consume yours as well." Sora looked at her remaining team. They were terrified. So was she. "Maybe," she said out loud, "but we are going to try anyway." They attacked. The fight was brutal. The Overmind had powers they could barely comprehend. It threw them against walls, tried to invade their minds, summoned soldiers to defend itself. One by one, Sora's team fell, until only she remained. She stood alone before the Overmind, wounded and exhausted. Her weapons were empty. Her strength was fading. The Overmind laughed in her mind. "One small human, alone, helpless. Just like your species was when we found them screaming in the dark. No one helped them then. No one will help you now." Sora thought of her father, of Councilwoman Misun, of Professor Jiwoo and his stories about the silence, of all the humans who had survived alone for 10,000 years. "You are wrong," she said. "We are never alone, not anymore. And we never give up." She pulled a small device from her belt, a plasma charge, enough to destroy the core and everything in it, including herself. "This is for everyone you have hurt," she whispered, "and everyone you will never hurt again." She pressed the button. The world breaker exploded from within. The Overmind died screaming. Across the battlefield, every Keth ship suddenly went silent as the psychic connection that controlled them was severed. Admiral Dohun saw the explosion on his screens. He knew what it meant. He knew who had been inside. "All ships," he said, his voice steady despite his breaking heart. "The enemy command is destroyed. Finish them." The Allied fleet surged forward. Without the Overmind, the Keth ships were confused and disorganized. Within an hour, the battle was over. The Keth Dominion was defeated. Days later, a memorial service was held on the Assembly Capitol. Representatives from every species gathered to honor those who had fallen. Sora's name was read alongside thousands of others, human and alien alike. Admiral Dohun stood at the front, an old man who had lost his daughter to save the galaxy. Beside him stood Commander Yuna, who had watched her species nearly die and then find hope again. Behind them stood Councilwoman Misun, whose single vote had sent humanity to war. Misun was asked to speak. She walked slowly to the podium and looked out at the gathered representatives of 7 species. Millions more watched across the galaxy. 10,000 years ago, she began, humanity cried out for help, and no one answered. We could have let that silence define us. We could have become bitter and cruel. We could have watched the galaxy burn and felt satisfied that others finally knew our pain. She paused. But we chose something different. We chose to become the answer we never received. We chose to save those who had abandoned us, not because they deserved it, but because we refused to become what the silence tried to make us. Her voice grew stronger. Today, we honor those who died to give us this victory. Humans and Valori, Morani and Takeshi, beings from every corner of the galaxy who stood together against darkness. They are the proof that we can be better than our past, that we can choose compassion over revenge, that we can answer calls for help even when no one answered ours. She looked directly at the representatives before her. The humans remember everything. We remember the silence. We remember the abandonment. We remember the pain. But we also remember what we chose to become because of it. And we choose now, as we chose then, to build something better. Her final words echoed through the chamber. We are humanity. We forgive you. And we invite you to join us in creating a galaxy where no one is ever forgotten again. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the representatives began to applaud. First the Valori, then the Morani, then every species one by one, standing to honor the people who had saved them all. Admiral Dohun closed his eyes and thought of his daughter. She had believed that strength without compassion was meaningless. She had died proving it. The galaxy had forgotten the humans. The humans had saved the galaxy anyway. And now, together, they would build something that would last forever. Not because of power. Not because of revenge, because of choice. The best choice humanity had ever made.